You're listening to Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis. Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis is brought to you by
Ray Cruz and MCF Mortgage. With a stellar reputation as an outstanding mortgage lender, Ray Cruz serves the lending needs of real estate professionals, builders, and individual homebuyers in Maryland, Washington, D.C., Virginia, Texas, California, Florida, Illinois, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Ray believes that integrity is the cornerstone of his business, and helping you achieve your home financing goals is his business. Located in the heart of Bethesda, Maryland, contact Ray P. Cruz today to get started. Your home mortgage or refinance options await. Call 301-761-2278 or visit raypcruz.com. Ray P. Cruz, mortgages intelligently.
For more than 20 years, I have seen Gene the Barber for my haircuts. I am proud to say that Gene the Barber is now the owner of a new shop, his own shop, Max Life Barber and Salon. Max Life is family friendly with barbers and stylists for men, women, and children. Located at 6859 New Hampshire Avenue in Tacoma Park, Maryland, Max Life Barber and Salon is now the new home of Gene the Barber. Of course, you'll get Gene's signature service, but now Gene has several barbers to choose from. Schedule an appointment today by calling 240-687-7253.
A Squared Home and Office Solutions is the go-to source for home or office network and audio-visual solutions. We can help with smart home integration, wireless networking, media rooms, security systems, and more. We will link technology to your lifestyle seamlessly. Read our reviews online. Visit homeandofficesolutions.com for more info or call 240-356-8832. A Squared Home and Office Solutions. We are home advisor screened and approved.
You're listening to Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis. Here's your host, Kurtis Cross.
Welcome to the Conversations. This is Conversations with Kurtis. I am your host, Kurtis Cross, and as always, I'm pleased to be here with you today. Of course, I want you to listen to our other podcasts, Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill, Crosstalk, the Kurtis and Paula Show, and of course, the Midnight Truck Stop and 911 Radio. You can hear all of those podcasts or view those podcasts on any of your podcast platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Alexa, wherever you get your podcast content. Once again, I want to welcome you to Conversations with Kurtis. I am Kurtis Cross, and I'm excited to be here today with a gentleman who, I'm going to tell you, what are we in, February now? 6 months ago, I had never met this guy face to face, but he is here now, and if you listen to my other podcast, you will know the name Ron Perrell. Ron, I want to welcome you to the podcast. How's it going, Ron?
Kurtis, it's going great. It's a pleasure to be here to talk with you.
Oh, man, Ron, I mean, the first thing we have to do, we do have something that we must do first, Ron, and the first thing we have to do is you have to promise me this will not be the one and only time we do this.
Oh, no, that's a promise. but Kurtis, before we get started...
All right, go for it, Ron.
I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Kurtis DJ Services. We hooked up with Kurtis several months ago before my wedding and Joan's wedding. I know those of you on the podcast with Kurtis and Paula, no, Joan's gotten many shout-outs, so I got to make sure I give a shout-out to my gal.
How about that?
And we interviewed several DJs, and we came across Kurtis, and we told Kurtis what kind of music we wanted for the wedding. And the first thing that Kurtis said is, my father would love to hear this music,
right,
because I'm old school. Right. So we connected with Kurtis to do our wedding, and the cool thing about it, we did our song list for him. We told him sort of what we wanted, what we didn't want. But the coolest thing is the day after the wedding, Kurtis sent us a nice little video with the music file of our wedding reception. And so any of you out there looking for a DJ for your wedding or a corporate party, Kurtis is the man to go to. He didn't know I was going to do this. So
I didn't ask you to do it.
Unscripted, just like we're going to go, Kurtis.
Well, folks, I need to explain to you who Ron Perrell Sr. is. He hired us. We found out today that April 27th is when we had either our first Zoom or the first time we talked, right? And, the first time I talked to you about your wedding, we said, hey, my dad would love this music. And I didn't know until today, you called me on the anniversary of the day my father passed some years ago. So maybe he connected us. Maybe he sent you to me on that day. We have since forged a friendship that I can say we're just beginning. The party's just beginning on this one. But it turns out that you and I have a lot of connections through the DC, Maryland area. That's number one. We have a lot of connections through basketball. And basketball is something that, I haven't said on this podcast before, but when I coached at Trinity College in DC for a couple of years, it was at a point where my mother and sister hadn't spoken for quite some time. They had a falling out. But they both came to one of my basketball games at Trinity, and that kind of sparked them talking again. So, Ron, we know a lot of the same people. As of today, we're still coming up with, hey, do you know this guy? Do you know this guy? And we happen to connect on all of that. It is a shame that we're meeting now. It is a shame that when I coached, I missed your coaching career by 3, 4, maybe 5 years.
About a couple of years.
I mean, we were ships in the night, but you left basketball in a good place for me.
Yes.
Because I picked up where you left off. But tell people who Ron Perrell Sr. is.
Well, Ron, professionally, I was a banker. Started in banking in 1973 in Washington, D.C., and kept through the banking career going forward. But before that, I was involved with music. I started playing the flute in 3rd grade and got pretty good at it. And by the 7th grade, I'm going, okay, would girls date a flute player in 7th grade?
Right.
Or should I switch instruments?
Okay.
So what I did is I switched to alto sax.
Right.
And picked up the sax. The next year, as I got better and improved, one of my friends in school says, I'm going to form a band. Ron, get me some horns.
Okay.
So I got some horn players. We formed a band. And in fact, the first time we performed, I was in 9th grade, and it was our school's talent show. Well, as the band progressed and grew, we ended up with 4 singers, 5 horns, 2 guitars, and drummer. And probably our greatest claim to fame is in 1968, we played at the inauguration of Mayor Walter Washington at the Sheridan Park Hotel in front of 1,000 people. And we got the mayor up on stage, and we started playing some James Brown, Please, Please, Please,
okay,
with the cape. And the mayor gladly sat down so we could take care of the rest of the show for him.
All right.
So music has always been in my life. Stopped playing as I got into my banking career, but it's always been in my life. And it sort of turned around the last couple of years when my wife Joan, there I go with Joan again.
You give her a shout out.
She got me a flute for Christmas 2 years ago. First thing she said is, do you still know how to put it together? I said, well, it's only 3 pieces, so I can't mess it up too bad. So what I did is I started playing, took lessons again, and I started playing. And I've sent you some songs, Kurtis.
Yes, you have.
Just to get back, and I do this for my therapy and well-being.
You sent my mama a happy birthday tune via flute.
Yeah.
You did do that. And that would be the Walter Washington that the convention center is named after.
Yes, correct.
Where I've seen some professional boxing. You and I have connected on boxing as well. But Ron, we are local guys. So, when I talk to you about the old convention center and Walter Washington, I talk to you about Marion Barry, you and I can talk DC.
Absolutely.
We can talk Kensington, Maryland. We can talk Montgomery County. We can talk private school, public school, sports. We've done all of that.
Yes.
Right? We can talk about the good old days of Georgetown University.
Yep.
And you and I talked earlier today. Patrick Ewing, he's having a time of it down there, isn't he?
Yeah. Yes, he is.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's the talent pool. I don't know if it's the big blue, the Dukes and the Kentuckys and the blue chippers. And what are we missing in Georgetown?
I think Patrick, a couple of years ago, he had some great recruits. He's lost those recruits.
Right.
And I think because of the record, they haven't been able to get the talent that he needs to be able to be effective in the Big East.
Right.
It's competitive in there. So I feel bad for him because I've met Patrick, nice guy, greatest guy in the world. But I wonder how many more years he'll have left.
He was a big man, obviously. And he was a big man in the days where we appreciated big men. If you had a legit big man, the ball works through him. You work inside out, whatever, but you dominate in the paint. You want high percentage shots. That's not today's game.
No.
I'm disappointed in today's game. I still watch it, but I come from a place where the guard brings the ball up, you get the ball to the wing, you feed it to the big man, let him go to work, or kick it back out, work the ball to the other side, swing it, but the big man's going to work down low.
Yes.
Block to block is where we're going. We don't see that game anymore.
No.
Joel Embiid can play in the paint, but he also has to have that three-point game.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Dirk Nowitzki did it. I don't know. I can't think of his name. His son plays in the league right now. Sabonis was a big man.
Yes, absolutely.
He was a bona fide. Rick Smits was a big man. You had all these guys, and we can go over to the West Coast, and we got Mikan, we got Chamberlain, we got Kareem, we had Shaq in L.A. And,
Artis Gilmore.
Guys like Bill Russell over with the Celtics, but it's not a big man's game anymore. No. I hope we get back to it, but I don't know that we will. Yeah. The emergence of the European players, which it has been my experience, and folks, I just want you to know, none of this is scripted. We're just talking here. The European players play a more smooth game, finesse game, but they don't play brutal basketball. No. Maybe they're too smart for that. They don't want to get beat up, because I don't see, a lot of the European guys getting down and getting dirty. Yeah. Because you remember when Larry Johnson and you're talking about Jeff Rulin, you're talking about guys like, I can't think of Rick Mahorn. Who was his counterpart?
Jeff Rulin, Rick Mahorn?
No, out in Detroit, the big man. He played with Rick Mahorn.
I remember him now.
And he went to coach the Las Vegas Aces.
Was it Bill Cartwright?
No, white guy. I cannot say his name. But anyway, those were the days where, you'd foul out in the first quarter with today's referees. Bill Lambier. Yeah. Bill Lambier would whip your tail.
Yes, he would.
He would whip
Twice.
your tail. And Kevin McHale as well.
Yeah.
Kevin McHale was a dirty son of a gun, but Kurt Rambis was too now.
Effective. Very effective.
But that's not today's game. And I have not caught wind of this. I hope Patrick Ewing's coaching style has evolved as the game has evolved. Because if he's looking to play big man basketball, that's not where we are.
You have to have a big man to play it as well.
Right. In a 7-footer today, he doesn't want to play in the paint.
No.
He just doesn't want to play in the paint. You've seen a lot of basketball. I'm sure folks who are listening who know D.C. area basketball may not know some names but may know some names So who did you see come through here with the DeMathas and the Mackins and the Gonzagas and all that?
Well, see, I'm going to go flip on the girls' side, Kurtis, since that's where my focus was.
And that's where my love is.
Starting out with COL basketball. But I had the honor of coaching in AAU the young lady from Washington, D.C., St. Anthony's High School, Penny Toller. Okay. Penny scored the first basket in the WNBA. For the LA Sparks. Later became the general manager and president of the LA Sparks. But the reason I always talk about Penny first is when I was coaching at Holy Cross at the time, she was St. Anthony's. She had one of the coolest little on-court tricks I've ever seen in my life. Okay. And I've never seen it before. What she would do is when you'd get in a triple threat to guard Penny, she would blow in your eyes and make you flinch.
Right.
So what happened is we were playing a real close game at Holy Cross, and Penny did it, went by for a layup, and my girls were still rubbing her eyes.
Right.
So we called a timeout, and I ran a play for my girl, who Penny was guarding, and I said, as soon as Penny gets up on you, I want you to blow in her eyes. Let's see what happens.
Right.
So Terry caught the ball, went by Penny. Penny's coming up with a cross-court dribble saying, Coach, you got me on that one. But she was probably the greatest ball player that I've seen come out of the Washington area.
Okay.
Back in the late 80s. And but some other players that I was fortunate enough when I was coaching at Elizabeth Seton High School to have one of the players who played on the first team at UConn that won a national championship for UConn with Gino Auriemma, and that was Kim Betters.
Okay.
Also had a girl who played it for Maryland. I probably had over 20 girls that I've coached over my career. Fortunately, they've gone on to play in further careers in college, and it was fun. But at a point in time in my life, I said I wanted to see my son play his senior year of high school. I stopped coaching. I did some scouting for a scouting service that also includes some scouting work for the Lakers, and always was a student of the game, enjoyed the game. It's funny, Kurtis and I, we went to a ball game today, and it was Georgetown visitation playing against St. John's girls. And when we talked yesterday, I said, I wonder if Mike McCarthy's still coaching. Well, the coach, Mike McCarthy, was a COL coach starting on the ranks back when I was having my career at Holy Cross. So it's Kurtis talked earlier about the connections we have, and it's sort of amazing the connection we have.
They're endless.
but talking about DeMatha, I remember going to see DeMatha play at Western Avenue in Summer League. And I remember seeing Adrian Dantley play as a
Baltimore Western
Avenue down here in D.C.
Western. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And they would have summer basketball league for the high schools. And I remember seeing Adrian Dantley play as a sophomore Chubby guy, but could play, and there's always some good hoops.
You know where he is now?
He's a crossing guard up
Yes.
in Montgomery County.
Montgomery County Public Schools.
And I got to talk to Adrian at the gym I was going to, because he married a young lady from Seton, and we started talking about our connection there we had. So I just love the game, love watching the game. And it's fun talking with you, Kurtis, about people we know, people we used to know and still know, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, Mike McCarthy. We talked about Treadwell this week.
Thomas
We talked about Bill Lindsay.
Bill Lindsay, great guy, great coach.
And why do I feel like, did we ever talk about this? Do you know, he used to run all the referees, the officials, Bill Marissy? Joe Marissy.
Joe Marissy.
We never talked about, see, I told you that would happen today. Joe Marissy was my gym coach way back in the day. He tried to pull me onto his real estate team.
Okay. I'll tell you a funny story about Joe, and it's recent. Joe's daughter went to good counsel when my son was a good counsel back in '94. My lovely wife, Joan, again, that's another mention for you, Joan. We went to Turks and Caicos for our recent honeymoon.
All right.
And our limo driver is also a high school referee.
You mentioned, okay.
So Bob, we're driving back from Dallas Airport, and he had a call to take, and he goes, I got to take a call from Morrissey. I went, don't tell me he's the same referee guy. I said, oh my God. Right. Well, he put him on the phone, and we had a real nice conversation. Me and Joe
go back to 86. That's how long. And by the way, you did mention Joan, but Joan sent, now I don't know what the heck these things are called. Let me take the wrapping off this so the people need to see this.
They're called Tataluch, but don't ask me how to spell it. It starts with a T, and I'll end it at that.
Joan sent these into the studio today. Now, listen, folks. Whatever you're seeing in this image, there may have been more earlier that got eaten. I won't say how many. I won't confirm nor deny.
Where's Chelsea at?
We had a couple of these earlier, but Joan, we want to thank you for sending Tataluch, you said?
Yes, Tataluch is what
Tataluch, thank you for sending these into the studio. I promise you, they might not make it into next week.
Yeah.
It's Saturday now. By tomorrow, they'll be gone.
They'll be gone. And it's funny because today, Kurtis and I made a bet on a ball game several weeks ago.
You're telling on yourself, Ron.
And, well, you got to tell it like it is, Kurtis. So what happened is we had a bet, and whoever lost the bet had to treat the other to Continental Pizza.
What's that phone number?
949-9797, cash only, please.
Because you go there with a credit card, they don't want to see it.
No, they'll send you out to get the ATM and come back with cash. So I've been going to Continental since I was, Lord knows. And I came in today to pick up our order. And any of those who are going to have lunch with Kurtis, he does like a steak and cheese with lettuce and tomato and mayo.
There you go.
And you got to have the fries, too.
Just have free fries on the side.
So I walk in today, and the former owner was there. I haven't been to Continental probably in 3 or 4 years. As soon as I walk in the door, Louis in the back. He goes, Ray, Ron, how you been?
Right.
I said, well, Lou, I'm married. I live in Albany now. He goes, what's stopping me from coming to Continental Pizza? I said, I'll be back soon.
There you go.
Because I'm sure we're going to have some more engagements, Kurtis, as we continue and foster our friendship.
Right. So Continental Pizza is right up there on Connecticut Avenue. And when I moved, I moved, the house I'm in now, I've been in for 20 years. This year I'll be 20. Before that, I lived around the corner at Georgia and Pliers Mill. I was renting a townhouse, and that's when I first found Continental. That's on the Silver Spring side, but now I'm on the Kensington side. And I'll tell you, folks, people love Continental. I talked to people who graduated from Einstein High School 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and they remember going to lunch at Continental Pizza. And Kensington is a small little town. Some people listen to us from all over the country, some from all over the world, but we're near the Washington, D.C. area. Kensington's a small town. I don't have the census numbers, but we can't have more than several thousand. I mean, we're not a big city. But if you've been through Kensington, you know Continental Pizza.
And the funny thing is, since Kurtis and I have gotten to know each other, I grew up about 1.5 miles from Kurtis's house.
Where I live, yeah.
So that's why we still have that, I call it the K-Town Connection.
The K-Town Connection. So we know a lot of the same folks in basketball. Bill Lindsay is the one who brought me into the girls' basketball fold. Back in the 80s, he was coaching Montgomery Blair High School, the old Blair High School.
Old Blair.
313 Wayne Avenue. Not the University Boulevard mega campus. And, I was a kid who didn't have a ton of direction. I did play football. I did play in the marching band, played clarinet. Went on to play soprano saxophone on my own, not through Blair. And then, in the winter season, I wasn't good enough to play basketball. I didn't want to wrestle. You had to run out on that track to get in shape, and I wasn't doing all that. But I don't know what connected me to, maybe Mr. Lindsay was my counselor at Blair, and he asked me, did I want to do it? And do I want to be a manager? And here's what I'm thinking. I get to be around nothing but girls. I thought a handful of them were good-looking girls. Yeah, I'll manage this team. And that's how I got introduced to girls basketball. The first year I was there, I think we went to, was it Catonsville, UMBC?
UMBC
is where they played the finals, right? And I remember Tracy Weich, who's now Tracy Prather, whose birthday was yesterday, the same day as Rosa Parks' birthday. She was on that team, and she had a fever for days before that and couldn't play. And her dad, you might know her dad, last name Weich, W-Y-C-H-E. He coached with Bill for a bit.
Okay.
He told her, if you don't get your butt up and go to school, you won't be eligible to play.
Right.
So you got to get to school. So she made it up to UMBC. We played friendly and we didn't fare so well. We won the county. It was the 4A West or the whatever. Now it's in sections, by the way.
Right.
It's the sectional and the regional and all that kind of stuff. We didn't do very well at UMBC, but we had some great teams. And Marnia, I'm trying to think. We had Tony Shropshire, Tracy Weich, Anna Bradley. I think those would be years where you were not playing against Bill.
Right.
Right. By that time, in the late 80s, where were you at that time?
I was probably headed overseas, but think about Bill.
In the summer leagues you saw him.
Bill was one of the class coaches and gentlemen in Montgomery County. We would see him down at the Jello Boys and Girls Club for Summer League. Right. And Bill always had a smile on his face and always a kind word for everybody. But he was just one of the class coaches back then in Montgomery County, along with probably Bill Wiley from Springbrook High School back then.
Right. And I think Bill Lindsay is now down in one of the Carolinas. He has a Facebook presence and all that stuff, but I keep in contact with him. He introduced me to girls basketball. And then I went on, of course, for those who don't know, I went on to coach football for the Tacoma Park Boys and Girls Club. 97, I went to the Edmund Burke School. I moved over to Trinity College, came back to Burke, refereed for 1 year, went to Langley High School in Virginia. That's where I had my most success. Moved to Churchill for 3 or 4 years, and then went over to Rockville High School. But my best team was the 05-06 Lady Saxons, the freshman team. I didn't call them freshmen, they were fresh women to me. That was a hell of a team. Shout out to Hannah Cooper, Brittany Fruin, Anna Lenzig, Ida Peterson, Jessie Ryan. I remember Stephanie Plunkett. I remember all these girls. That was my favorite team I've ever coached. Yeah. Not because we went undefeated. Winning helps.
Sure.
Ashley Banks was on that team, whose father went to University of Michigan and was a backup quarterback for the 49ers under either Steve Young or Joe Montana. Something Banks, not Carl Banks, something Banks was the last name as a backup quarterback. But not because we won, although winning kind of cures a lot. The girls listened, the girls played hard. And as I told you earlier, my job that season was to call timeouts. They knew what they were doing. Yeah. They knew what they were doing. So when we talk basketball, you and I unfortunately did not cross over. If you had that little XY axis, you were right there and I didn't come in so right behind you. I missed it.
That'd have been some fun competition going against each other.
Well, I didn't know what I was doing. You would have gotten the best of me. Oh, you would have gotten me. I was just getting my feet wet. Yeah. But, if I ever do coach another game, then you and I can sit on the bench together. Sure. We won't be opposing coaches. No. We won't. Taking it back a little bit to being DC guys. We've had some activity over the last 3 to 5 years that you and I have not really discussed, but I'll say it like this. They'll always be the Washington Redskins to me.
Absolutely, yes.
They went to Washington football team, and to be quite honest, I don't get up into the debate over what they should be called, how they rolled out the name. I'm going to watch them on Sundays. And they didn't ask for your vote, and they didn't ask for my vote. Right. They're the Commanders now, but to me, they'll always be Washington Redskins. Now, one of the crutches I lean on, I dated a Native American young lady for years. I thought we were going to get married. This is out of high school sweetheart. You think you're going to marry her, right?
Was she on the basketball team, Kurtis?
No, she was short. She was maybe 5 feet tall. No, I didn't marry any of those or didn't date any of those young ladies. Although I keep up with a few of them now. One of them actually taught my daughter 3rd and 4th grade or 4th and 5th grade. She was my 4th and 5th grade teacher. her family didn't mind the name Redskins. So that's just where I get that part from. And I'm not here to get into some social or political debate. They're the Washington Redskins to me. But when I talk about them, I don't talk about today. I talk about RFK Stadium. I talk
that
about
place used to rock.
I talk about Dexter Manley.
Yeah.
Like if I say these things, you could Dexter Manley, Dave Butts, Jim Lachey, Charles Mann, Daryl Grant,
Larry Brown,
Daryl Green, Larry Brown. We're talking about those guys.
I was at the rookie year for Daryl Green at RFK. I was at the game where he caught Tony Dorsett on that 100-yard run.
Damn near 100 yards, right?
I was at the very top of the stadium, and it was a cold night. I had my son there, and out of nowhere, Daryl Green came down the field at a nice angle and caught Dorsett. And that's the first time we saw.
He can catch anybody, couldn't he?
Catch anybody, yes.
He can catch anybody. And we're talking Joe Theismann in that first one. We're talking
Pat Fisher.
We're talking, did we fail to mention Riggo? Did we fail to mention Riggo?
Get the diesel going.
Get the diesel going, baby. Riggo was a big boy. He needed oxygen. If he peeled off 25 or more yards, he was going to need some oxygen. We're talking the Hogs.
Yeah.
Who ran the Hogs? I can't say his name.
Joe Bugle.
Bugle.
Yep.
Bugle ran the Hogs. And Russ Grimm.
Yep.
Guys like that. But we also had Neil Okowitz and Rich Malott and Doc Walker and those guys, right?
Down and dirty guys.
Joe Lavender, he played in the secondary, I think. We had Mark Murphy.
Yep.
Did he go on to be an executive for the Lions, maybe? For or Green Bay, maybe.
Green Bay.
Yeah, they had success. Wherever he was, they had success. I don't know if I mentioned it on my other podcast, but Adam met Doug Williams a few weeks ago. Right. So Doug Williams, that's 5 touchdowns in one quarter.
Absolutely.
I thought we were toast. When Denver went up 10-0, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Here we go again.
Because you remember 38-9.
Yeah.
We lost to the Raiders.
Yeah.
Because Joe Theismann decided he wanted to throw that at the end of the half. A pick six for about 5 yards.
Yeah.
He was coming out of the end zone. And then, of course, Mark Rippon, who they say could have played that season in a tuxedo because he hardly ever got sacked.
Yeah.
There's your example now in sports. Mark Rippon is your example of a Super Bowl winning quarterback who does not need to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He had a great year. Mm-hmm. He had a great year, but does he make the Hall of Fame? I don't think that's even a question. He never does.
Yeah. Curtis, I'm going to name drop some other Redskins we failed to mention.
Please.
Bobby Mitchell.
Charlie
Taylor. Sonny Jurgensen.
Sonny ain't never met a bottle of liquor. He ain't like.
Never. Or a cigar.
Right, a cigar, right. Exactly.
Then you go with the Fun Bunch with Doc Walker, Art Monk.
You going to forget one.
Gary Clark.
You going to forget one. Alvin Garrett.
Yes. Number 89.
Yeah, I DJ'd for Gary Clark because he had a club in Bethesda called South Beach.
Okay.
But keep naming. You got some more names? Joe Washington. We had Gerald Riggs for a while, didn't we? Gerald Riggs, remember?
Gerald Riggs,
37 maybe?
Yeah.
Or 36, number 36 or 37. But don't forget that Super Bowl Timmy Smith. He peeled off about 200 yards. Yeah, I don't know. He might be selling cars right now.
Maybe.
But he ran for 200 and some change, didn't he?
Unbelievable, yes.
Yeah. So we had our heyday. And folks, if you're not into football or not into Washington Redskins football, when Ron Perrell says the stadium would rock, he doesn't mean just because it was loud. He meant the bleachers were rocking. I was at those games.
Chanting, we won Dallas. We won Dallas.
Those were the days. Yeah. But we're talking about, so if you're going to talk about those days, let's talk about how the world of sports has changed. Sure. Because I didn't have season tickets to the Redskins, but you know what I did have? You said it earlier, I had a flash pass, and I would just go right down to the stadium, go to a scalper out front, pay $50, $30, whatever, and I would get me a seat.
I had me some friends.
That's what you had? But we used to be able to go to RFK. Smallest stadium out was like 55,000 seats, maybe. It was nothing to it.
Not the cleanest one either.
Not the cleanest one. Man, you had to go up and up and up and up. But those were the days.
Yeah.
And I told you we wouldn't need a script because we can just keep this conversation going. At what point did Sharon Pratt Kelly piss off Jack Kent Cook for him not to bring the stadium and keep it in D.C.?
Yeah.
It needs to be in D.C., I think. What are your thoughts? We haven't talked about this. What are your thoughts?
I think Jack's ego was in the way of a lot of stuff.
But it was during her administration, right?
Yeah.
During Sharon Pratt Dixon.
I'm not sure what happened between those two, but when Jack made his mind up,
Right.
including not selling a team to his son.
Right.
He was a very hard-headed young man.
Right.
Not a young man, but a hard-headed businessman is what he was.
Right. Now, do you know where he came from?
Los Angeles.
Do you know he used to own the Lakers?
The Lakers, yeah.
He sold them to Dr. Jerry Buss.
Okay.
He did sell them to Dr. Jerry Buss. But Jack was fascinating to me. And he would always, you know how he would talk, and he would always talk about his coach, Norval. He wouldn't call him Northturn, he called him Norval.
Yeah.
But he had on the derby, like the Papa Bear,
Yep.
like the Bear Bryant derby.
Always looking sharp.
Always. And he would have his little director's seat, his folding chair, and he would go right to training camp and watch.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the Redskins belong in D.C. I long for the days where you could just catch the Metro. What station was that down there? I guess it was RFK, but it was down by the D.C. Armory.
Stadium Armory.
Stadium Armory Station, yeah. And you would just take a Metro. It was $1 or 80 cents, whatever, to catch the Metro down there. And then you go see a game. You buy some popcorn. You get back on the subway. And those were the D.C. days. Now, I know D.C. has had its history with Marion Barry and the crack epidemic and all of that. However, a 15, 16-year-old kid could get his Metro card and go down there. If I saved my money from the gigs I did, because remember, I started DJing when I was 13, right. I could go down there and I could buy me a ticket. And me and my boy, David Herman, who helped me start my business, we'd buy some tickets, we'd go watch the Redskins. Mm-hmm. I remember standing outside that stadium to get, it was $20 is how much the tickets were for the Jackson's Victory Tour, Jackson 5. Mm-hmm. And we would sit out there and we got tickets to the Victory Tour. I got to see Michael Jackson. Here's two things you don't know about me. Every time in my lifetime that Michael Jackson and Prince have come to town, I've seen their concert.
Wow.
Every single time. Every single time they've been to, I never missed Michael Jackson. I've missed Janet Jackson a time or two, but I was a huge Michael Jackson fan. Huge. I mean, because in my younger days, when I started listening to music, Thriller was the album. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we're talking about a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And let's transition into something else. I think that Original Music Aquarium might be one of the best albums of all time. We haven't talked a lot about Stevie Wonder.
No.
But you want to talk about a genius.
Oh.
You want to talk about just a flat out genius.
The first time, Kurtis, I heard of Stevie Wonder, I was probably in junior high.
Okay.
And one of my friends who knew I loved music said, you got to hear this record or album.
Okay.
And it was little Stevie Wonder playing fingertips.
Fingertips.
At the age of 12.
Right.
And
with the harmonica.
Oh, yeah. And it did the little, dun, 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 right in the middle of the,
exactly.
Of the song. It's like,
and like, who is this
genius,
kid, right?
Genius.
Mm-hmm.
Genius. One of the top one or two songwriters of all times, mm-hmm. bar none, right. bar type of music, yes.
So I have a story for you. And it might have been around 84, 85. You remember Graceland. Mm-hmm. The name of the album was Graceland by Paul Simon.
Yeah.
Paul Simon accepted an award for Graceland. And if I'm not mistaken, word for word almost, he said, I would like to thank Stevie Wonder for not making an album this year. Because that's the only way he knew he could squeeze in. But Graceland was a bad album.
Yeah.
You got to give Paul Simon credit on that.
Yeah.
But Stevie Wonder, I heard Eddie Murphy say it on one of his comedy albums, because both my grandparents have passed, so I can admit now that when they would go to church sometimes, my dad would put on Eddie Murphy records for us because we couldn't play them in the house when my grandparents were there. Yeah. But Eddie Murphy said that Stevie Wonder's a musical genius, and he is.
Absolutely is.
He is. He's still winning Grammys to this day because he's writing, producing, doing whatever. But if you listen to Pastime Paradise, if you listen to Hotter Than July, if you listen to My Cherie Amour, if you listen to Isn't She Lovely, if you listen to the fact he wrote the Happy Birthday song for the MLK holiday, and I'm not even touching any of his greatest work.
Yeah.
This guy is ridiculous. He is off the chart. He was born in 1950. I think he was born in 1950. So we talk music. Those who I think belong on the upper echelon, when you talk genius, I think Billy Joel is amazing. Mm-hmm. I think Paul Simon, I think Elton John, I think Stevie Wonder. When you move to modern music, for me, it's Jay-Z, because he knew how to monetize rap music. It wasn't just about the songs. He wanted to make the clothing line. He wanted to own the record label. Because
franchise everything.
Right. Because he said he's not a businessman. He wants to be the business.
Yeah.
He wants to be the business. And then you have people like Drake, and that's moving more into the young folks' time. But, people like Drake said, your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So they understand, these guys these days that are hugely successful understand that they don't care about the champagne bottles and the music videos with the half-naked girls.
Right.
They don't care about going to the club and buying rounds of drinks. They want to own the liquor that you're buying.
Yeah.
Because one thing, Ron, and we haven't talked about this at all, but one thing I believe that successful folks in who are minorities, we get caught up maybe too often in the flashiness of this or that. You were in the banking business, I don't want to have to go to your bank to get the loan. I want to fund it myself. I want to underwrite it myself.
Cash is king.
Because as you know, when I go to the bank, Ron, right now, and I don't talk money like that, but I can, I don't want to pay, I can go in and get a 6-figure loan right now. Mm-hmm. I don't want the 6-figure loan because the 6% you guys are charging me on it, the CEO is getting another condo in St. Lucia off that. You understand what I'm saying? So my wife and I, we don't believe in financing. We don't believe in debt. I don't carry any debt. Mm-hmm. Like I can show you a pic. My last credit card bill was $92. I mean, I don't carry any debt. But I think that's part of the problem with, society, our young people and all of that. It's the instant gratification. And, they want to qualify for the loan. I don't want to qualify for the loan. Yeah. You know what my credit score is? I don't even know because I don't rely on that. Right. I mean, it's probably 8 something,
Yeah.
because we got 2 homes, we qualified. Right. They let us get 2 loans, but, and when it comes to a home, I'll do that. But, I just don't believe in that. And I want to underwrite it myself because you know what? Kurtis doesn't charge Kurtis any interest.
That's right.
But you were in the banking business. Were you in loans? What was your thing with banks?
My start in banking was 1973. When I got into banking, it's funny, when I was in 3rd grade, the teacher would say, they would have us do a speech of what we want to do when we grew up.
Right.
And my occupation, whatever it was, I wanted to carry a briefcase and talk to people.
Okay.
So in 1973, I got a job at a savings loan down in Washington, D.C.
Which they don't even call them savings and loans anymore.
No. Making a grand total of $6,000 a year.
All right. You were big time.
And I was a management trainee.
Okay.
And within 3 years from there, I became a branch manager. And stayed with that organization for a number of years. Also did other things with that company. And then moved on. Then around 1993-94, the bigger banks came into Washington, D.C. and started playing Pac-Man with all the savings and loans.
Eating them up?
And taking them up. And they wanted a customer share, basically. So I went into commercial banking.
All right.
But I still loved working and coaching a team. So I stayed in the branch management aspect of it and had success, enjoyed it, loved networking with people, talking to people, and getting to know what their needs were.
Right.
And
you've seen some people come in, you help them with their needs, and they become a success.
Oh, absolutely. And a good success story is always a chance for good referral. Just like we're talking about our connections.
Right.
It's about making the connection and having a good product for the customer. And but it's got to be a good connection and a good product for the client.
Right.
It's going to meet their financial needs as well.
Right. By the way, I've only had 1 or 2 guests in the studio. Ron is in the studio. Usually they're remote. Ron is sitting right across from me. So if I'm not giving you guys a lot of love on this camera right here, it's because I'm looking over at Ron right there.
And likewise, too.
Right. So Ron was in the banking business for a number of years. And, again, when there were savings and loans, Ron, I'll tell you what I miss. I miss the days of when my first child was born. I put $5,000 into a CD. Do you know what the rate of return was on that CD back then? This was I'm gonna see if you can guess. My daughter was born in 2008. What was my yield in 2008?
How long was your CD for?
5 years. I put it in for 5. I didn't need the money, so I put it in. Like 10 grand, I think.
Maybe 2.5%.
6.15.
Okay.
I got 6.15 in 2008. Right now, that same CD might get me 1%. So it's for me now. It's on to mutual funds and some other things and blue chip stocks and all that. But back then you can get, and back in the 70s and 80s, you can get some interest.
Back in the 70s and 80s, you could get 16%.
Oh my goodness, I've never seen such a number.
And in fact, we had one of our products we had at the bank was a 10-year CD.
Okay.
Getting 12%, your money would triple in 10 years. And but who would want to tie the money for 10 years?
Right.
12%.
12%
and we were selling jumbo CDs to customers.
$50K or more.
100,000 or more.
100,000 or more.
And
Okay.
their rate was 18, 19, 20%.
Well, we know the rule of sevens. If you invest in the market every 7 years, it should double. But the market is different than investing in a CD. But they have stocks and they have bonds now, and we don't have any more silver certificates, do we?
No.
I mean, I'm going back, right?
Way back.
I'm going back now, right? But now we have, and my family wasn't always a family who knew how to save or invest. I came up on some hard times. Our parents split up. When I was a kid, we got evicted. We were on government assistance and all that kind of thing. But I did promise myself in those younger days that I was never going to live that life. And I took some bumps and bruises along the way. But now I'm happy to say, like I mentioned to you, we don't do the debt thing. I just won't do it. Yep. Right now, Paula's car is coming up on the end of her lease. And leases can work for some people, but I'm not interested in buying a brand new car and taking on that bad debt. The most recent car I bought, we rode down to the game today. I bought it. It was used with 3,000 miles on it, and it was 10,000 less than what it would have been brand new.
Did the same thing 6 years ago.
Right. You're not taking on that debt.
No.
Well, Ron's big time. He goes to resorts in Turks and Caicos, y'all. All right, I saw the resort you went to, fella. Well, tell us about that. How was that? That was a beautiful vacation.
Well, what happened is when Joan and I talked about getting married, we had dated for a couple of years. And the ironic thing is that we also had dated in high school a couple of times.
I see. You didn't tell me that.
But here's the story, and I'll try to keep it as PG as I can.
All right.
Joan and I were dating, and there was a party that we both met up at.
Okay.
And her friends brought her to the party, but I brought her home.
Okay.
So we're under the street light, having a good night kiss. Well, her father, former Marine.
Oh, okay. Go get yourself in trouble.
He might have been on top of the roof, with the rate of binoculars. But then Joan got put on restriction for a good while. A good while. So, but we sort of reconnected just a couple years ago.
Okay.
And so we talked about marriage back in probably March.
Okay.
And I said, Joan, where do you want to go for your honeymoon? She goes, I want to go to Turks and Caicos. Well, I've been to Caribbean, I've been to Hawaii, I've been to Bermuda. I don't know where Turks and Caicos was on the map.
Okay.
I had to Google it, find it out. And as I did some research on it, I found out the beach there is called Grace Bay Beach.
Okay.
And it's rated like one of the top 1 or 2 beaches in the world.
Okay.
So, I've got my location. I found out where it is.
Did you ask her to marry you yet?
Oh, yeah, we talked.
Well, you said you talked about marriage. You never said you proposed.
When she told me where she was on the honeymoon, I figured we were good.
Okay.
So what happened is I did some research. I contacted a travel agency and sort of pinpointed some hotels. And the hotel we selected is called 7 Stars. And one of the reasons I like that is you could go to their website and their cam, and you could see what the property looked like. It was more than just looking at pictures on a website of a resort. You actually could see the live cam.
Right.
And so we decided to go there, and my travel agent was able to throw in a couple extra nights for us.
Okay.
So we stayed there for 9 days, and then we thought, well, how are we going to get there? And of course, Turks and Caicos had a very strict policy, which they still do, as far as getting vaccinated and having your testing done 3 days before. So what happened is we got tested on the day after the wedding. We got tested. Mm-hmm. We flew to Atlanta the day before the flight to Turks. Spent the night in Atlanta, and then Wednesday morning we flew out to Turks and Caicos. And the webcam at our resort doesn't do the place justice.
Okay, all right.
It was unbelievable. Top-notch restaurants. What's ironic though is I had my 50th reunion over the summer, and one of my classmates he flies jets for Warren Buffett's jet line. He's been to my resort about a dozen times and stayed. So he gave me a list of restaurants to make sure we hit while we were in Turks and Caicos. And we hit several of them, had a great time. And when you go on the beach, I'm used to the beaches at Ocean City,
Right.
where you step on rocks, pebbles, crabs, jellyfish.
Seaweed and a whole bunch of stuff.
When you go into the Turks and Caicos beach, you're stepping on powdered sand, walking right into the 70-degree water.
So you're walking into God's miracle.
I just want to keep on walking if I could. And but we had a great time there. I was concerned about the travel time, but it's nonstop flight to Turks and Caicos and back is 3 hours.
Okay, so
we
you can't get to California that fast.
No. And we did the COVID test at the resort to come back, and we had 9 days of heaven. The first day we sat on the beach, and I said, okay, this is nice, but this is our honeymoon. We got to do something special. So I got us a cabana for the rest of the stay.
Okay.
And we were cabana number 3 for the next 8 or 9 days. Made sure we tipped our servers really good. You got great service, had great food, great weather, and it was paradise. It was paradise.
Well, look, I'm going to tell you, and you already know this, but I'm going to tell the people. When I found out where he was going, and remember, I was just a DJ for his wedding, but I happened to look it up because he said, hey, Kurtis, this is what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. And I look it up, and I'm saying, I'd like to get there because this place looks great. Well, when I saw the dollar signs that it took to get there, okay, maybe I won't be going there. But I want everybody to know, if you're just catching up, this is Conversations with Kurtis. My guest is Ron Perrell Sr. I DJ'd his wedding third week of?
23rd of October.
23rd of October.
And we had a party, didn't we?
You had a party. We didn't get to that part. So Ron and I met. We did a Zoom, him, myself, and Joan. Thank you again, Joan. She made Talucas? Talaluch. She sent these Talaluches over here. Met them via Zoom. And I just felt like from the first email or phone call, because I think you spoke to DJ Chrissy.
Yes.
And you know what? We're going to talk about this right now, and I'm going to thank you for it, because you saying this was the final step in me recognizing what I needed to do. I knew I needed to do it the whole time, but you pushed a button that let me know I have to do it for good. You said to DJ Chrissy, I've had a talk with Kurtis or whatever. I want to go ahead and book it or whatever. I know he's the owner, and if I have to pay a little bit more for him, I will. And my dad always tried to tell me, you got to get what you're worth. Yep. That doesn't mean you go charge $1 million, but you can't charge. Look, what did Ray Charles say? If you ask for pennies, you get pennies.
Yeah.
If you ask for dollars, you get dollars. He'd rather have the kind of money that folds, not the kind of money that jingles. But you let me know that my service was worth it. And obviously every customer you want to pay your asking price or what have you. But sometimes, you have to find out where you belong there. My dad's friend Tyrone told me, if you ask for $200 a gig, this is back in the 80s, all you're going to get is $200 a gig. They're not going to offer you $300 if all you're asking for is $200. So you said that to her. He said, if he's the owner, if I got to pay a little more, I will. We have this friendship here, and that's how Ron Perrell Sr. and I came to be. I DJ'd his wedding. Shout out to Andrea. She was there as well.
Yeah.
My assistant, Andrea, she works with me pretty much March through November through all the weddings that I have to do. And I wouldn't do a wedding without her. That's my girl.
So Kurtis, I want to get your music opinion.
Sure.
Kurtis requested some songs. So I sent over Kurtis a song list. I think we're about between 50 and 60 songs. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to make sure that we wanted a certain type of music. Right. And we didn't want, the go-go stuff. We didn't want the hip-hop stuff. We didn't want the group dance songs. So, but I also said, we want about every 5th or 6th song, we wanted to have a slow dance. And that was Joan's request.
Right.
Shout out to Joan again.
All right.
So give your listeners some feedback on a playlist I sent you, Kurtis, if you would.
So the first thing, before I talk about the playlist, I'll say that most often it is the bride who communicates with me more than the groom. You were very active in booking the wedding and making sure you had but you're the music guy. I mean, Joan likes music.
I write the check too.
Right. Now, Joan, I'm sure, likes music, but you've been around music your whole life.
Yes.
So you knew how to be the architect of what you would want to hear, and you can represent what Joan wanted to hear. When we first talked, I said my dad would like this music. So that automatically to me meant I wanted to do this wedding.
Right.
We talked Junior Walker and the All-Stars. We talked Marvin Gaye. We probably talked Commodores, talked Four Tops, Temptations,
the Delphonics.
Yes, all of these things. And I knew this was a wedding that I could connect to. In fact, you booked me so early in the process, you were still looking for venues.
Yes.
Remember, you hadn't even booked the venue, but I know I'm going to have Kurtis.
What I'm music.
I thought your music list was exactly what the group wanted. Now, we did straight from the list because someone asked for Taylor Swift.
That's right. One of my nieces snuck one in.
Okay, she snuck in Taylor Swift on you. And I feel like one of your guests may have asked for something Latin because they wanted a salsa or something. But other than that, we didn't get a ton of requests. And when you don't get a ton of requests, that means the music list you're going with must be working.
Yeah.
If you're keeping them on the dance floor and they're not asking for other music, the list must work. Doggone it, if I knew we were going to podcast, I could have pulled up your music list from somewhere and I'll see. Oh man, next podcast I'll have it so we can tell the people about the music. It was a great time. The food was good. The ceremony was great. The location was great. Yeah. I feel like it was supposed to rain that day, but maybe it held up.
It rained held off. And the funny thing about it is, earlier we talked about my musical background and musical bands. Two of my bandmates from back in the day were at the wedding.
Right.
And we did some stuff together there. And it was great having those bandmates at my wedding because I've known these guys, since junior high. And we performed so much together.
Right. I'm trying to see if I can find your list on here. Oh, man. Wedding week, Perrell wedding. I mean, Ron will send you some emails. He's going to let you know, hey, Kurtis, when you want to get on another Zoom so we can, finalize everything and blah, blah, blah. Now, Ron had his stuff together. This might be it right here. I don't know. But I'll find it at some point on one of our next podcasts that you and I get on together. And I'll tell you, though, there are clients over the years who I've become friends with. I think of people like Carol and Paul Plato, which, by the way, Paul passed some years ago. Carol's still a friend of ours. Your list and Paul's list would be exactly the same. You want to talk about the Manhattans, the Manhattan Transfer, right?
Yeah.
You want to talk Chicago 25 or 6-4.
Yeah, that's right.
You want to talk about the Delphonics. He was a Delphonics fan, but you didn't request, Sideshow. Let the sideshow begin. Blue Magic? You're not familiar with Blue Magic? No. You know what? That may have been right after the era you're talking about. Okay. Charlene and Moses were friends with them. A bunch of people. And throughout the years, you pick and choose and this, that, and the other. But this is a friendship now that's here. We're here now, Ron. You can't get rid of me. You can't get rid of me.
Before I came over today, I looked at the text message that Kurtis and I have sent, and I just scrolled back. We've watched ball games together and text during the games. We have watched, I was telling Kurtis about some young boxers I know, the Russell brothers.
I'll say, mention their names, please.
Gary Russell Jr. just lost the WBC Featherweight World Championship about 2 weeks ago, but they're from District Heights, the Russell brothers. Gary Antoine is wrestling on February 26th. He's undefeated. And also Gary Antonio is also undefeated. Okay. And I got to know these young men working at the Democracy Credit Union.
I was going to say, you never told me, how do you know them?
Well, their cousin was my head teller.
Okay.
And they had a relationship with the credit union. I became their banker.
Okay, there it is.
And I saw them both, all three of them, fight at the MGM several years ago. They were the first, I think, brother bouts that all fought on the same bill.
Okay.
And but those of you who like boxing out there, listen to the podcast, just keep an eye on the Russell brothers. There's Gary Russell Jr., Gary Antoine Russell, and Gary Antonio Russell.
Here's the question. You talked about this in the car. Duke, North Carolina coming on later today. That doesn't have the same ring it used to, though.
No,
back in the day, we're talking Dean Smith.
Dean Smith days.
We're talking
four corners.
If he was up, he was going to run that four corners offense, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
He was. That's James Worthy, Michael Jordan. Yeah, Sam Perkins, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he had obviously a bunch of names throughout the years. Yeah. I mean, he did his thing. But all right, so what the heck was I going to mention? Oh, you mentioned it in the car earlier. Does the Olympics still produce good boxers that become professionals? I know back in the day, that was like the farm club. Mm-hmm. If you were going to box in the Olympics, your next step was professional boxing. Does that still serve as a breeding ground?
I'm not sure, but I know Gary Antoine represented the U.S. in the Olympics several years ago. He boxed. He lost on a controversial decision in his bout. But I really don't follow. The only boxing I follow really is when the Russell brothers are boxing. Okay, all right. And because last night you and I were texting during the St. John's girls game, I was also messaging Gary, wishing him luck for his upcoming fight on the 26th.
Okay.
And it's on Showtime, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
So we're going to have to jump on that one again.
Right. Hey, Kurtis, you have to get another 7-day trial for Showtime.
I'm going to have to get a 7-day trial. So I come from a place where Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Larry Holmes, the Spinks brothers. That's where I come from.
Yeah.
You know, I saw Muhammad Ali, of course, box, and then I was excited. You know what? The first boxing match of Mike Tyson's, I heard on the radio.
Okay.
I did, so I can go back to radio.
Yeah.
You know, and you and I watched boxing when it was on the Wild World of Sports.
Oh yeah.
When it was on Sports World.
Jim McKay.
Yeah, you and I would watch it then, and you didn't pay for the boxing.
No.
But all of a sudden, something happened, and pay-per-view, here it is.
It's called Ching Ching Ching.
And I remember pay-per-view, the first pay-per-view boxing match I ever paid for at my old house, so it was 20 plus years ago, was when Tyson bit Holyfield.
Yeah.
That was the first fight I ever paid for. And that was probably $29.99. Now, these boxing matches are $100.
Yeah.
They want $100 legitimate dollars for a pay-per-view. I don't know that the boxing world has something that folks are willing to pay for now. Like, who are the big names? I mean, the big names aren't there anymore.
No.
You know, they're just not there anymore.
That's why I'm fortunate that the Russell Brothers fight on Showtime,
Right.
which we have.
Right.
And so it's nice to watch them.
I mean, the Klitschko brothers, they were fighting for a while, but that's years ago. Now, I can't name you champions in 4 different weight classes right now. I can't. It's just not, you know, like I said, when you and I used to watch, and it was Sugar Ray, everybody's watching the Sugar Ray fight.
Yeah.
You watching Roberto Duran, No Mas, right?
No Mas.
We're watching that one. But that was a different DC then. What have you seen now? Let's just jump into another category. Ron, when you worked at the banks in DC was a black city.
Oh, yeah.
It was a black city. And it might be predominantly black now. But people talk about gentrification and this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. You know, again, chasing the dollar, a lot of folks who lived in DC sold their wonderful Rhode Island Avenue row houses to the first bidder that said a number they liked. Mm-hmm. Those homes are worth over $1 million now. Yeah. Because those row houses have 4 or 5 levels. And they're not very wide, but they go back very far and they go up very high. How have you seen, if you were banking in the banking business now in DC, how has DC changed? I mean, Georgetown used to be hustling and bustling with nightclubs and bars. It's not that Georgetown anymore.
No, it's not I used to play at Georgetown every Sunday night at Clyde's, and you know, that was a night to play at Georgetown because all the students from Georgetown would come back to school, and it was just a party time, you know.
Right.
So, yeah, I go back as far as DC, living in Anacostia with our grandmother, and she worked at Can's Furniture Store, and it was a great place to live.
Right.
And, you know, there's some good places in D.C., just like any other city.
Right.
There's good places and places you shouldn't go to.
Right.
But I've always loved going to D.C.
Right.
Anytime I've gone to events or go to restaurants, I have no problem going to D.C. And going and get a nice meal or going to a nice show. And I see some, I know when I'm going down to the metro, I've seen some buildup going down past Brooklyn and down there.
That's where I grew up in that area, Turkey Thicket.
I've seen some nice, Turkey Thicket. You're talking some hoops again now.
Yeah, we are.
I've seen some buildup in D.C., which is nice because it's a great city. And, you know, I go down to the Washington Nationals baseball games. And, I mean, I went to Griffith Stadium back in the day.
Right.
So,
you saw Senators.
Yeah. I saw Ted Williams play.
Okay.
Number 9 for the Boston Red Sox. So I've always had a love for D.C. That was where I got my first banking job. I played clubs there. I have family there. I had clients there, friends there. And, you know, my heart has a spot for D.C.
You know, and I was born in D.C., grew up in D.C. and in Montgomery County. The secret is out. When I went to Blair, we were living in D.C., but my mom maintained the Montgomery County address with a friend so I could still go to Blair. But I'm talking Georgia Avenue, Howard University, where I went to school. I'm talking about the Wonder Bread Factory on Georgia Avenue. We could smell that bread, man. Yeah. They were baking that bread. And we're talking the old WST Music Hall on 9th and V Street.
Moon Man. Where's Moon Man?
We never talked about 1450 WOL, the Moon Man.
Moon Man would say, Moon Man, back it up and play 4 more bars.
My dad introduced me to the Moon Man. And do you remember when WOL had Radio Vision, and you can go down on H Street. They were on H Street, and they had the glass window, and you could see the DJs in action. Yeah. We never talked about Moon Man.
But it's funny when we talk about DC. Back in the day, I played in one of the a real good Motown band back in the Montgomery County area,
right.
And we were not the best band, but we were a younger band. But we were also very good. But all the bands back in the day would get their tuxedos down on 7th Street at Royal Formalwear.
Okay.
And you would see more other bandmates and members going down there, getting their, because that's where everyone got there. They did the best job.
Mm-hmm.
You might get your equipment from Chuck Levin's or some other places. But
which, by the way, is where the equipment that I DJ'd your wedding with came. I'm a Chuck Levin's guy.
But
they were in D.C. back in the day, right?
Yeah. But you would get you always would get your outfits to wear for your band jobs down at Royal Formalwear. Everyone went there.
Let me ask you this. Were you must have been here when D.C. burned down.
The day it happened when Martin.
We're talking Dr. King when Dr. King was assassinated.
When Dr. King was shot, we had band practice.
Okay.
And that afternoon, we had several singers who were black, great guys. Their hearts are always with me. And all of a sudden, abruptly, they said, "We've got to go."
Okay.
So that tore me because I had friends down there. And it was just a tough time to go through.
Right.
And it took a while for our bandmates to get the closeness and tightness after what happened.
Right.
For us to get where we were again.
Well, yeah, I guess so, because then, even though we play, I'm speaking from your perspective, even though we play in the band together, we've had beers together after band practice or whatever, No,
we were too young for that, Kurtis.
Oh, okay. Well, you get a meal or something, but you'd hang out.
Yeah.
And at that time, I guess, did your band members have reason to call into question the friendships? Because we're talking segregation, we're talking Jim Crow, we're talking, he was shot because he was a black leader, and you didn't shoot him.
No.
But your people did. That has to be the immediate thought, right?
Yeah. No, we, fortunately, with the young men we had in our band, we all were a tight group regardless.
Okay. Right.
We felt for them. We embraced the next time we saw the gentleman after that. So, it was a tough time for everyone to live in that area, that era. And, but, you wonder if we could say you make a better person getting through some tough times like that.
Right.
That's really hard to say, but it was tough.
Right, I bet.
Tough. Yeah.
So you were in D.C. at that time, or you've been in this area the whole time.
Yeah.
And then like I said, the Wonder Bread Factory, RFK Stadium, the Moon Man. We didn't talk about that. Hecklinger Plaza. Where's Hecklinger's gone? Ain't no more. Home Depot took over.
Yeah.
Home Depot took over, but that was down there about Gallaudet, down that area, right? Hecklinger Plaza, and we just had some good times in D.C. Yeah. It seemed, I hate to sound like some old guy, but it just seemed like a simpler time then.
Yes.
Yeah, it just was.
Yeah.
It was a simpler time where, these days, for example, you saw, I sent you a couple of shots. My daughter and I were practicing basketball this week. And the gym was open because they were supposed to have a practice. The coaches canceled practice, but said, if anyone wants to shoot around, the gym is yours. So there was another young lady there who was shooting. Where the gym is, you have to walk through the school a long way to get there. Her parents probably dropped her off out front, and she walked in. Now, in my day, you can do that. Yeah. But there's a lot of people she has to pass in that school to go through. It's just a different time where, your parents let till the sun comes down.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And you play outside. When mama screams out that it's dinner time, you bring your butt back inside.
Yep.
And the guys on the court at Circuit Ticket looked out for me.
Yeah.
Because they knew whose son I was.
Yep.
It's just not that way anymore.
Yeah, and I grew up here in Kensington. I grew up playing basketball down at Kengar Park off of Beach Drive.
Right.
And it was not only playing ball, but it was a brotherhood.
Right.
And, had some great friends that I grew up with down there that lived in a small town called Kengar. I became real good friends with a lot of great people down there. And the mayor of Kengar, Mr. Jackson, I became a manager for his baseball team.
Okay.
And I went to high school and graduated with his daughter. And so it was just Kensington I think had a great atmosphere. It was a great community for me. And you had no qualms about walking anywhere or doing anything back in those times. You felt safe.
And back in those days, you had to learn how to communicate on a basketball court because you would just go up and say, I got next. Yeah. And you have to pick your guys and you have to get out there and play. Yeah. You might not know them, but after that game, you're going to know them. Yes. And you called your own fouls, and we didn't call a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, it's street ball at this point. Yeah. It's street ball at this point. But like I said, I was never a basketball player, but I would watch those guys. I talked to you about Donald Hodge. I would watch him down in Turkey Thicket. And those guys would climb up the electricity pole and hit the switch so they could have the lights and play at night. Yep. And that was back in, that's near Coolidge High School and Bertie Backus Elementary School. And I guess what would the school be for that part of Northeast? Because that's over there in Michigan Avenue. What school would be over there? I don't even know what high school you would go to because Coolidge was on the northwest side.
Coolidge on northwest side.
Off 5th Street.
Down George Avenue off of 5th Street.
And you remember they built that new gym.
Yes.
That was the place to be.
Yep. They built the gym in honor of the coach who was coaching for the Coolidge girls team back when I was coaching.
Okay.
Mac Brown.
Okay.
The gym was named after him as far as I can recall. And but it's another great coach. I was fortunate enough to play several games in that arena. And it was, a great court. It was the biggest high school gym.
Yeah, in D.C.
By D.C., Maryland, and Virginia.
Yeah, it was like a stadium.
Yeah, it had an upper tier.
Yes.
So it was just a nice place.
Yeah. And you remember the games back at Cole Fieldhouse.
Oh, yeah.
No air conditioning.
No air conditioning.
No air conditioning, that bad boy. My sister graduated from Cole Fieldhouse. Our high school, Blair, we used Cole Fieldhouse for the graduation space. And if you get a June graduation, it's going to be hot up in that bad boy.
I played our graduation song 3 years before I graduated, so I knew the routine. Right.
But Cole Fieldhouse, the building is still there. Did they tear it down? I don't know if they use it for anything.
That's where the Maryland high school boys games, the finals were at Cole Fieldhouse. That's where you would go.
Yeah, now they're at Comcast or Xfinity Center now, still on University of Maryland's campus. And the girls' games used to be at Towson's CQ Arena. I think CQ, that's the credit union. Yeah. But now they're supposed to move those to Maryland as well.
Okay.
Yeah, supposed to move those to Xfinity Center as well.
When I was coaching, of course, our team was eligible. It was at the UMBC is where the girls' games would be played at.
And we found out today, they're a good team, but there still is a difference between the ISL and the WCAC.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is. Yes. Except for in the ISL, Sidwell Friends has the #1 girls team in the country, and they are not playing. Yeah. I pointed out Kiki Rice to you today, right?
Yes, you did.
Yes. Yeah. She was on my other podcast, Take It to You with Turner and O'Neill. I got to get down there. They play Visitation this week on Tuesday.
Okay.
That's going to be a tough one. But St. John's girls showed up today.
Yeah, they played
very well. They showed up. They played very well. And it didn't hurt that some of those Vizzy shots just weren't falling. That third quarter they did it in.
Yeah.
They scored 2 points, or was it a 3? That bank shot?
It was a three-point shot from a bank.
The bank shot. Yes. Oh, man, Ron, we're going to have to end this thing.
It's all good.
We're going to have to do it again.
We'll be back.
We will be back. We'll come up with some new connections and all that stuff.
And I'll have to make Joan make some more cookies for us for our next podcast.
She can make these. She can make different ones. She can make whatever she wants. Because right now she's got the green light. She's got the green light, Ron. You know what? It don't have to be cookies. It could be some of that Instapot y'all got.
Okay.
All right? It could be some of that Instapot. It's going to be on me, though, because when spring comes, you haven't seen the deck.
I've seen some pictures.
You've seen the pictures.
I've seen some pictures.
We had the deck built right before your wedding. Actually, in June, we had the deck built. Okay. So we really haven't I haven't even gotten a chance to seal it yet because, with new lumber, you can't seal it right away. Okay. So I'm going to seal it the first couple of nice days we get. People don't understand. When you seal your deck, you got to power wash it first, then you got to let it dry.
Yep.
Yeah, and then, so it's going to be 2 or 3 days for me to do it. Yeah. I want to really get bone dry, and we're going to get a clear sealant we're going to put on it because one year on our old deck, we bought a stain that was like a paint. You could never get it off. Wow. And we hated that color after a while. So we got a brand new start. We're going to have you and Joan over. And you know what? We've got lounge seating. We've got outdoor couches. We've got fire pits. We got everything going on.
And I guess you might have some music included, too.
I got my Bluetooth speaker out there. There's going to be some music, Ron. There's going to be some music. Ron, I am going to send you backstage and have some... close it out with these folks. But ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know this is a brother from another mother.
Absolutely.
Mr. Ron Perrell. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Kurtis.
All right, fella. Let me put this man backstage. I don't know how to do what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to put you backstage, Ron. Well, you just going to have to stay till the end of the show, Ron. That's what you're going to do.
Under the Queen wave.
Right, there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening to Conversations with Kurtis. As you know, and as always, we are brought to you by A Squared Home and Office Solutions, Gene the Barber, and Ray Cruz and MCF Mortgage. I want you to listen to our other podcasts, Crosstalk, The Kurtis and Paula Show, Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill, The Midnight Truck Stop, and 911 Radio. You can get these podcasts anywhere you get your podcast content. If you want to follow me on social media, it's at Kurtis Talks on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. Don't forget the Kurtis and Paula Show. We're going to record later today for tomorrow's episode. Ladies and gentlemen, if you know someone who wants to be on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. And as always, thank you, Khadijah. We'll see you next time.
Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis can be heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Music, and just about anywhere podcasts can be found.
From Washington, D.C. to Ocean City, Woodbridge to Columbia, Richmond to Virginia Beach, the hottest DJs are right here. The Mid-Atlantic Professional DJ Association.
Dynamic DJ Entertainment, the most experienced professional DJ service in the DMV. For 35 years, our DJ talent has been the energy behind more than 14,000 events. If you're planning your wedding, school dance, corporate event, Sweet 16, or any event, our talented team has the right mix of music and MC skills to bring the energy and turn any event into an epic event. In 35 years, our DJs have performed in front of more than 2 million guests in 26 states. Our services include dynamic DJ talent, karaoke, giant games, atmospheric effects, movie nights, and more. Contact us today and let's make your next event an epic event. Dynamic DJ Entertainment. Visit thepartybeginsnow.com or call 301-942-4500 to get the party started.